Good morning. This is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Thursday. As we search the scriptures for references on Thanksgiving, we notice that Paul gives several admonitions in Colossians chapter 3. He first of all calls for them not to lie to one another. Let's put away all wrath and anger and malice. We need to be more forbearing, forgiving of one another. And then in verse 15 he says, "And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to the which ye also are called in one body, and be ye thankful." Wouldn't it be wonderful if the peace of God actually would rule in our hearts? And we're not talking about a peace that's generated up by this world for certain times or certain days or certain occasions. We're talking about a supernatural peace. Philippians chapter 4 says, "It passes all understanding." No one can explain the peace of God in our hearts, especially if you have the peace of God during a pandemic. The world won't understand that. Or if you have the peace of God when the world is falling apart all around you, or maybe your own personal world seems to be crumbling under your feet, and yet you have the peace of God that passes all understanding. When we allow the peace of God to rule in our hearts, nothing changes that. And Paul says this is actually our calling into one body. The body of Christ and all believers in particular are called to this kind of mindset where the peace of God rules in our hearts. And when we do learn to let the peace of God rule within our hearts, then he gives another command, and be ye thankful. Notice this is not just a command that's generated up for November 26th alone. It's not a short-term action to employ for today. It is actually a state of being. Be ye thankful. So instead of celebrating Thanksgiving with turkey and family and football and maybe a nap, Paul calls for us to be a thankful people. Wouldn't it be great if our Thanksgiving lasted maybe as long as those turkey leftovers did? Our world today, by the way, has countered the feeling of Thanksgiving with greed. Isn't that what Black Friday is all about, for that matter? Let's set aside the turkey for a little while and let's run out and fight every other consumer in the stores to buy the best bargains and drag them home and let greed and self-indulgence just take over for a while. Let me ask you this question. Have you ever purchased something on Black Friday that you didn't really need, or perhaps really didn't even want for that matter, but it was on sale? Well, we so easily forget about being thankful, and everything else in the world floods in, and we turn to being greedy. Let's let the peace of God rule in our hearts today, and let's be a thankful people.